Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this annual council meeting for West Berkshire Council. I'm Councillor Graham Pass, the Chairman of Council. I'm supported this evening by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Clive Hooker, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting. All members are invited to participate in full council meetings, and the Council's Chief Executive, Nick Carter, and Executive Directors are present to support members if required. I'll now pass over to the Monitoring Officer, Sarah Clark, who will outline how the meeting will be conducted. Mrs. Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I am assisted by Phil Rumans, who will be acting as the Zoom host of the meeting, and Stephen Chard, who is the clerk to the meeting. They will be assisting the Chairman as I am about to describe. I will now give some reminders to members and other attendees about the way we conduct council meetings via Zoom. If it becomes necessary for any members to telephone into the meeting, you won't be able to signal to speak. So once everyone who has raised a Zoom hand has spoken, the Chairman will be asked to invite anyone who has telephoned in to speak in order. In most cases, decisions will be determined by holding a named vote. Members will be asked in turn how they wish to vote. Please remember to unmute yourself in order to do so. Unless a member asks for the vote to be recorded, and this is supported by 3 other members raising their hands via Zoom, the named vote will not appear in the minutes. So anyone wishing to vote, the vote to be recorded must indicate this before the vote is taken. Where decisions are not substantial or are to note only or are not contentious, they will be determined by a show of hands. This will be made clear for each agenda item prior to the vote being taken. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, the Chairman will adjourn and will advise members of the revised time and date of the meeting. If it is a short adjournment, you will be able to rejoin this Zoom meeting, otherwise a fresh appointment will be sent out. No speeches may be made after the member has moved a proposal and the purpose of it until the motion has been seconded. A member, when seconding a motion or amendment, may, if they then declare their intention to do so, reserve their speech until a later period in the debate. Members are reminded that as this is a full council meeting, members are only permitted to speak once on an item unless they are the proposer or unless they are raising a point of order or personal explanation. All members are permitted to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Stephen Chard will notify the member when there is 30 seconds to go. Members, please do not leave the Zoom meeting at the closure of the annual council, as individual committee meetings will then take place. The procedure for those meetings will be explained before the closure of the council meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Now, councillors, before we start the meeting, I would like us all to observe a minute's silence in respect to the sad passing of the Duke of Edinburgh. So please, could we reflect on his life? Members, thank you. Mrs. Clark, item 1, do we have any apologies?
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, we have received apologies from Councillor Eric Pattenden.
Okay, thank you. Now, item 2, my remarks. Those eagle-eyed amongst you will note that I'm not wearing my chain of office at the moment. All will become clear due to the difficulties of handing over such items on Zoom. So after I've made my remarks, as I say, all will become clear. I'd like to start what I wish to say by thanking Councillor Hooker. Clive, you and Christine have been very supportive over the last 2 years. I'd like to thank you very much. You've been an eminent vice chairman, most helpful, keeping me on the straight and narrow, especially during council meetings. I would also like to thank Sarah Clark, our monitoring officer, for her reassuring support and advice before and during meetings. You have assisted more than you will know, Mrs. Clark, and I thank you very much for it. I also thank members of your team, or I should say recent past members of your team, Moira Fraser and Linda Pye in particular, but especially to Joe Watt for looking after the chairman's diary and for always making sure I was briefed and ready for any occasion. I would also like to thank you members for your goodwill and assistance during my years of office. Now, this last year has been like no other. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed many things, from the way we work and conduct business to the inevitable different way in which we interact with people and organisations. Recently made, it was released over the weekend, a short video thanking our staff and the voluntary sector, and indeed our communities, for all they have done in the last 14 months to make life somewhat more bearable for many who have been suffering during the pandemic, those living in isolation, those not able to get their medication, their shopping and so on. That I hope is still on the council website. It certainly was yesterday. But I especially want to thank our staff who have gone over and above and beyond the call of duty for the past 14 months. I can't name them all, but they have risen to the challenges magnificently. I would especially wish to thank those involved in the community hub. You have made such a difference to the way people could ask for help and always ensured that help was at hand. Many others have seen their roles change. For example, we have all heard much about the grants that have been made available during the pandemic to help our local businesses. But how are those grants spent? How are they distributed? Well, behind the scenes, a team from Revenue and Benefits in particular have been working really hard to ensure the money was distributed with minimal delay. I could go on for 5 or 10 minutes thanking everybody in turn, but please, any members of staff who are watching will watch. Your efforts have been truly wonderful, and I thank you very much for all you have done. Keep up the good work. I hope not too much longer. Finally, I wanted to share some of the more pleasurable memories of being chairman over the last 2 years, although the first year was significantly busier than the second. Starting from this year, apart from making several videos to support and recognise local organisations, I've actually only attended 3 live events in person. One was VJ Day in Newbury. Another was Remembrance Sunday, again in Newbury, very socially distanced with very few people. And I had I'm going to say the sad privilege to attend a very poignant service. I was invited by the Bishop of Oxford to represent West Berkshire at Christ Church Cathedral in Oxford just over 2 weeks ago for a remembrance service for the Duke of Edinburgh. There were only 40 people there, excluding the choir and the clergy. And I have to say, I was the only councillor from Berkshire. People from Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Berkshire attended. The High Sheriff was there. One of our deputy lieutenants was there, Dr. Hill Williams, who gave a reading. Countess Howe, the Lord Lieutenant from Buckingham, was there and gave a reading. Our new High Sheriff, Willie Hartley Russell, and literally only 2 others from local authorities. The previous year was much more business as usual. Lots of citizenship ceremonies, which Hilary in particular and I both enjoy, talking to people before the ceremony. Staff recognition events, a visit by Princess Alexandra to Thrive at Beech Hill, and a visit by the Princess Royal to Prior's Court to celebrate their 20th anniversary. Beating retreat at Denison Barracks. The Shore House Summer Fair, always worth a visit. The Berkshire Gardens Trust garden tours. Events at the Royal County of Berkshire Show. And especially memorable, as always, as I'm sure Councillor Linden will vouch, anything to do with the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, especially their awards ceremony, was well worth attending to recognise the magnificent work those people do. There were Remembrance Day services. I always enjoy the one at Welford, which is particularly poignant and well done, and with our American visitors from. There were lots of carol services throughout the district, but supporting volunteer centre events. One of my overriding memories of being the chairman, the first time I did it, was our voluntary sector, and what a difference they make to our communities. They're still doing that, probably even more so now. And finally, the last really sort of live event I did was a visit to the House of Lords on behalf of the Berkshire Youth Trust, where again, we recognise the magnificent work they have been doing. I've been honoured to represent West Berkshire at all these events on your behalf and others in the last 2 years. I thank you for granting me the privilege of being honoured with being Chairman of Council, and I thank you very much. With that, I will conclude. Right, we now turn to item 3, which is the election of chairman for the municipal year 2021 to 2022. I hand back to Mrs. Clark.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've noticed that Councillor Doherty and Councillor Dillon have both raised their hands.
They did, didn't they? Oh, I didn't know. Sorry. Councillor Doherty.
I was just raising it in I was only raising it in preparation for the next item. Apologies.
Oh, all right. Councillor Dillon.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to respond to say thank you for your 2 years of service as the chairman of the council. I've taken on a civic role and done it for consecutive years as well, and as well as all your council duties as a councillor. You know, I know that you would have been working hard to represent us there as well. So just on behalf of the opposition members, can I say thank you as well for your 2 years of service?
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Those words are appreciated. Right, Mrs. Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Following the vote on the election of the chairman and the vice chairman, we will be playing a short video showing the COVID-safe exchange of the chains of office. The chairman and vice chairman will then read their declarations of acceptance of office. Can I please therefore now ask for nominations for the chairman of council? Councillor Doherty.
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Clive Hooker as the chairman for the municipal year 21-22.
Thank you. And does that find a seconder?
I would very much like to second Councillor Hooker for that office.
Thank you, Councillor Pask. Are there any further nominations? No, I can't see any further nominations. So I'm now going to invite the proposer and seconder to make any comments that they would wish to make at this point.
Thank you, Sarah. First of all, Councillor Dillon's already beaten me to it, but before I move on to say a few words about my proposal, I too would like to add my thanks to Councillor Graham Pask for his 2 years of service. It's been very much appreciated on behalf of us all. So thank you, Graham, and thank you for sharing with us the events that you've taken part in on our behalf over the last 2 years. It actually gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Clive Hooker as chairman of West Berkshire Council for 21-22. Because I first met Clive on my first day as a councillor at one of the many induction sessions that we are required to go to. He, like I, was a newbie in the 2015 intake. Since then, I've got to know Clive, obviously as a Conservative group member, but also through his role as chairman of Western Area Planning. Within that role, Clive demonstrates some of the traits that I hold dear: fairness and integrity. He is always considered and balanced in his views and seeks to treat everyone fairly in his dealings with them. It is these very traits that give me confidence to propose him as our chairman, as I am sure he will continue to act in this manner in the coming year. When I first spoke to Clive about becoming Vice Chairman in 2019, with the intention to then become Chairman in 2020, no one could have seen the weight that followed. Clive was truly honoured to be asked, and he felt sure that he and Christine would enjoy being our civic representatives for the year, and looked forward to the many events and occasions that they would be required to attend on West Berkshire Council's behalf. At this point, Clive had no idea that his move into the role would in fact take 2 years. I am very grateful to both him and Graham for their patience and endurance over this time. As we move through the roadmap out of COVID, and I see a growing number of events being reinstated across the district, I hope that Clive will now have the opportunity that so many of his predecessors have had to act as our ambassador and represent West Berkshire Council, a job I am sure he will do well. When it comes down to his role as chairman of this council, I know that Clive will take his duties very seriously, preparing beforehand and then treating everyone with respect while retaining firm control of our meetings. Clive was a magistrate for 34 years, so I'm sure he has had much tougher crowds than this one to control. It therefore gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Clive Hooker as our chairman for 2021-22.
It gives me great pleasure to second the nomination for Councillor Clive Hooker as well. He has been, as I said in my comments, an outstanding vice chairman for the last 2 years. It didn't go as planned, but Clive, let me assure you, you didn't really miss a huge amount last year, and I hope that, as our leader said, that events do open up for you and Christine to enjoy. It is my pleasure to second his nomination for chairman, as I know Clive will represent the council and the people of West Berkshire with great humour and dignity. So I wish you luck, Councillor Hooker.
Thank you. I can see Tony Vickers has raised a hand.
Yes, Chairman, if I may just come in and add my congratulations to Councillor Hooker for being nominated, and I'm sure we will be voting for him. But as the Vice Chair to his well-run Western Area Planning Committee for the last 2 years, I'm very happy to see Clive elevated to the position of chairing the full council. And I know he'll do a very fair and take the job, very fair job, and take it very seriously, but with a sense of humour when appropriate. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. I couldn't agree more. Right, I'm going to hand back now to Ms. Clark.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask members to indicate their if they are wishing to vote in favour of this nomination that Councillor Clive Hooker be elected as chairman of council by raising their hands. I'm aware that Councillor Bridgman has lost his video, so if Councillor Bridgman can raise his virtual hand, I will be able to see that as well. But if I can ask members now to raise their hands, please, for all in favour.
I think that should be the magistrate's first fine.
Okay, thank you. And any against? No. Thank you. I can confirm that Councillor Clive Hooker has been elected as Chairman of Council for the 2021-22 municipal year. Thank you. And I shall now hand over to Councillor Hooker.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Clark, and let's hope we can continue in a like vein for the rest of the year. We now move on to item 4 of the agenda. It's the election of a vice chairman for the municipal year of 2021-22. May I ask for nominations for the position of vice chairman, please? Councillor Bridgman.
Chairman, thank you, and apologies to members for my lack of video. Roll on a fortnight when I get giga clear, I can assure you. Chairman, thank you. It's with greatest of pleasure that I nominate Councillor Rick Jones for the position of Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much. and it gives me great pleasure to second that nomination. Are there any other nominations, members? No, I think we're all clear. Councillor Bridgman, would you like to say a few words in support of your nomination?
Chairman, I would indeed. Chairman, members. Rick and Val have lived in West Berkshire, indeed in Purley-on-Thames, for some 35 years now, and they have brought up their family. Now, in fact, their son has moved back into Hermitage, so he's back in the district, and according to Rick, his daughter wants to move to West Berkshire as well, and we all know what a wonderful place West Berkshire is. Rick had a somewhat varied career. He's had a career in IT and banking and consultancy. He tells me mostly in London, but short periods in Paris and White Plains in the good old US of A. So good for that. I never got to work abroad. He's been a member of Purley Parish Council since 2003 and indeed was the chairman from 2006 through to 2015. And I think the reason he gave up that chairmanship was because he was first elected to West Berkshire Council in January 2015, and that was in a by-election. So he beat a number of us who were first elected in May 2015 by a few months and saw a couple of elections within the first 6 months of 2015. He was appointed, now this is interesting because he was appointed to the executive in 2017, and basically I have followed him round because he started out in his resources portfolio, then he moved to adult social care, and then he moved to health and wellbeing, and those are the three portfolios I've held in turn. He was on the executive until May of 2020, but he has, and I am very pleased to say, stayed on health and wellbeing as my deputy, and a very useful deputy he has been. And he's taken a very keen interest in community development for wellbeing and resilience and addressing inequalities and all those things that matter to all of us. Now, Rick tells me that Val is looking forward to this year, not least because she reckons it involves some spending on apparel and some new dresses. Now, he also says, and quite rightly, and I know Val well, and I'm sure she's going to have a great time with Rick, to meeting lots of new people. So, members, I am delighted to propose Rick as Vice Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgman. And it now falls on me as his second to say a few words. And as is invariably the case when one seconds someone, everything about them has already been said by his proposer. But I had a little bird tell me that Rick started off his working life very much like me, in the engineering industry as a production engineer. And as far as I'm concerned, that is as good a reason as any for me to second him. Those of us who know Rick well know that he's a good listener, and he finds it easy to talk to people, which are two very important attributes for the role he has ahead of him. So, Rick, he certainly has my full support for Vice Chairman of this council for the forthcoming year. Mrs. Clark, would you please conduct the vote for Vice Chairman, please? And this will be a show of hands.
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Chairman. Can I ask all members in favour of this proposal to raise their hands or virtual hands now, please? Thank you. And any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark, and that gives me much pleasure that Councillor Rick Jones be appointed as Vice Chairman of Council for the 2021-22 municipal year. Congratulations, Councillor Jones, and I look forward to working with you over the next 12 months.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Clark.
Thank you. So the video showing the exchange of civic regalia will now be shown, after which the Chairman and Vice Chairman will read their declarations of acceptance of office. Please can I ask now all members and officers to turn off their video whilst this video is playing. Thank you.
Welcome to the beautiful Shaw House in Newbury. I'm Graham Pass, the current chairman of West Berkshire Council. It's very important that whilst following the current COVID-19 guidelines, we continue to promote the role of the chairman of West Berkshire Council. We have therefore chosen this historic location as a backdrop to film the handing over of the civic regalia. Before we start the ceremony, I'd like to introduce my wife, Hilary. And Hilary, thank you for your support over the last 2 years, and indeed for all the support you've given me over the time I have been a councillor. I'd like to present to you the dates. I'd also like to introduce Councillor Clive Hooker and his wife Christine, the current Vice Chairman of West Berkshire Council, and Councillor Rick Jones and his wife Val, who is the proposed Vice Chairman for the forthcoming municipal year.
Firstly, I must thank Councillors Doherty and Pask for nominating me for Chairman of Council, and to all the members for your support in electing me to represent you over the next year. It's a role that I'm very much looking forward to and I'm honoured to undertake, both in terms of my civic responsibilities and those in the Chamber. Most importantly, on behalf of myself and all the members, I'd like to thank you, Councillor Pask, for your services to the Council as its chairman over the last 2 years. During this time, you have, without any question, carried out your duties impeccably, and you've gained the total respect of us all. And thank you, Hilary, for all your support you've given to Graham during his time in office. We all appreciate the commitment you have both given over the last 2 years, and you have proved to be a very special team. And finally, thank you to Christine, the support and advice you have given me in my role as Vice Chairman and the encouragement going forward as Chairman. Thank you.
Hello. I would like to thank the councillors Bridgman and Hooker for their proposing and seconding of me to the office of Vice Chairman of West Berkshire Council. Also to the members for electing me to this office, which I deem a great honour, and I will fulfil the role to the best of my ability. I would like to thank Clive for his 2 years as Vice Chairman of the Council and for his steadfast support to the Chairman, and to extend those thanks to Christine, his wife, for her support to him in that 2 years and for the no doubt necessary support that he will require over the next 12 months. And I'd like to wish him the best of all wishes for a good year as Chairman of the Council.
And in conclusion, I'd like to thank again all the members for electing me as Chairman of West Berkshire Council for this year, to congratulate Councillor Jones for being elected as Vice Chairman, and I look forward to working with him and Val over the next year. I know we're going to have an exciting and busy time. And also to thank Councillor Pask and Hilary for all the work they did over the last 2 years. So nothing really remains now for me to close this ceremonial part of this council meeting. Thank you.
Are we all back, Mrs. Clark?
I believe we are all now back and can continue with the meeting. So I think we are now going to move to reading the declarations of acceptance of office.
We are indeed, and it gives me great pleasure to read that declaration. I, Clive Arthur Hooker, having been elected to the office of Chairman of West Berkshire Council, declare that I will take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it accordingly to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I can invite the Vice Chairman to read.
I'd like to make the declaration of office for Vice Chairman. I, Richard John Jones, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of West Berkshire Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Members, due to the situation we are in currently, Councillor Jones and myself will make appointments to come in and see the monitoring officer so that we can actually sign the declaration book in front of her. Thank you very much indeed. Members, before we move on to item 5 of the agenda, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of myself, Councillor Jones and our wives, Christine and Val, to thank Joe Watt for organising the very enjoyable morning at Shaw House, and to Ben Tunstall for making the video of the exchange of the regalia. This enabled us to experience at least a variation on the customary ceremonial elements of our annual council meeting, which otherwise we would have missed. On behalf of us all, thank you both again. We now move on to item 5. Does anyone have any observations on the minutes, please? If not, then I would like to move the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of March be confirmed as a true and correct record. Have a second, please.
Councillor Hook, I'd be happy to second those.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Mrs. Clark.
Thank you. Can I now ask members to raise their hands, their real hands in front of the camera for a simple show of hands to confirm the approval of the minutes? Thank you. Any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that those minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. I do have a copy of the minutes here and I will sign them and show them to you for.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to item 6 of the agenda, which is the declarations of interest. Mrs. Clark, are there any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I've not received any declarations of interest prior to the meeting, but I can see Councillor Sumner has raised his hand and I don't know whether any other members wish to make a declaration at this point.
Councillor Sumner and Councillor Hunt, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to put in a perspective declaration of interest due to my employment at the Royal Berkshire NHS Foundation Trust. There are certain matters in here that, although not directly affecting my job, will look at the organisation I work for in some part.
Thank you. And Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, so it's just to say that I've recently taken a job with the Ministry of Justice, and although it isn't politically restricted and there's nothing on this agenda which should cause a declaration of interest, I just wanted to say at this point my form will be out of date, but I've arranged with Sarah to update that.
Thank you. And Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My employer is listed as a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can see no more declarations, so we will move on to item 7, which is the appointment of the executive by the leader of the council for the 2021-22 municipal year. Councillor Doherty, our leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hooker. Firstly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my portfolio holders for all their support and work over the last year. As a team, we work collectively with our members to ensure that we deliver the promises that we made and that are laid out within our council's current strategy. And I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve so far. This year has seen an additional pressure in that we've all been having to respond to the global coronavirus crisis. This has meant additional pressure in every service area and adjustments to enable this vital work. And I'd like to thank the portfolio holders for their input into this. Having been leader for 2 years now, I've gained experience in the many different areas that residents look to their local council to deliver. I feel I now have enough experience to make the changes that I feel necessary to continue to focus on our residents' priorities and make further improvements to ensure that West Berkshire remains a great place to live, work and learn. A few weeks ago, you heard of the changes I made to the People Directorate in terms of portfolios, primarily driven by the changing health agenda. Now I am able to announce the changes that I'm making to the Place Directorate. Having spent the last 2 years listening to both our parishes and our residents on the importance of place shaping is now very clear in my own mind. Ensuring infrastructure supports development and development supports infrastructure creates a vision of place shaping that can result, if done right, in healthier, happy people. You will see in item 20 of this evening's agenda that the importance of getting this right has resulted in a need to restructure. And I too intend to restructure by bringing both planning and transport under one portfolio holder to ensure a holistic view of placing for the coming years. I'm pleased to announce that Councillor Richard Sumner has agreed to take on this challenge and will take this role going forward. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Hilary Cole for all the work she has done within the planning and development portfolio since 2016. Planning, by its very nature, is by far the most contentious area of the council. And Hilary has been an absolute stalwart over the years in taking all of that in her stride and prioritising the need to deliver against policy to ensure that we ultimately protect taxpayers' money from the lengthy appeals process and ensuring that we are a plan-led authority as opposed to letting uncontrolled development have a negative impact on our beautiful district. I'm also pleased to announce that Councillor Cole, while retaining housing and strategic partnerships, will take on a new responsibility, that of transformation. For several years now, we have been looking at new ways of working to ensure we remain an efficient and effective local authority, fit for the future. As we move out of COVID and towards recovery, the need to drive this agenda across all directorates becomes ever more pressing. Therefore, to ensure this focus and drive, Hilary will be the portfolio holder for transformation, utilising her many years of council experience with her desire to innovate and drive customer focus. I wish both Councillor Sumner and Councillor Cole every success in their new roles. And finally, I could not finish talking about portfolio holders without adding my own special thanks to Councillor Graham Bridgman, who is not only taking on a challenging new portfolio, but will remain as my deputy. I am always so grateful for his support and guidance. Our minds may work in very different ways, but I like to think they complement one another. And I could not have got through the last year without his constant presence. All other portfolios remain the same.
Thank you, Leader, for giving us your composition of your executive for the next year. We now move on to item 8, members. This is health and scrutiny, and I think here I invite Councillor Williston. Would you like to just propose the recommendations, Councillor?
Thank you, Chairman, and firstly, my congratulations on your new role.
Thank you, Councillor Williston.
The NHS is having a major restructure, which includes the creation of the integrated care system, which for us will be Buckinghamshire Oxfordshire and Berkshire West, as it presently stands, known for obvious reasons as Bob. The establishment of what is being called Place, effectively Berkshire West, that is to say Reading, Wokingham and West Berkshire.
Councillor Wollaston, this is just a recommendation, not your whole report.
I do apologise, Chair, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You are indeed.
My apologies.
Would you just like to put your recommendation of the proposal?
I would like to propose this motion.
So can we just clarify as well for Councillor Wollaston that we're currently doing item 8, which is the health scrutiny, rather than the joint health scrutiny?
Indeed, I'm aware of that.
Sorry.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Wollaston. If you just put that for us again, please.
Yes, I'd like to propose the motion.
Thank you very much. And do I have a second?
Yes, that finds a seconder in myself.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Wollaston, back to you, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I won't repeat what I've already said. To date, scrutiny has been part of the OSMC's role, but it's going to become even more important under the new system. I know from my time as portfolio holder for health and wellbeing, the NHS is a mysterious beast with more acronyms than I've ever come across and a language of its own. It is really hard to get to grips with the detail unless you immerse yourself in it. And the broad remit of OSMC, in my view, does not allow for this. Hence the conclusion that we need a new health scrutiny committee, reporting to OSMC to focus on its key statutory responsibility. This covers public health and NHS matters, including the activities of the Health and Wellbeing Board, NHS dentistry and pharmacies. It cannot be delegated to officers, and all members of the executive are barred. This is proposed to be a cross-party committee of 3 Conservatives and 2 Liberal Democrats. There can be up to 2 non-voting co-optees appointed to bring specific health expertise. As I've said, this is a statutory requirement, and I believe that by creating the committee, we are given the task the seriousness it deserves, and I therefore propose the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wollaston. Members, anybody else would like to speak on this? We do. Councillor Bridgman.
Chairman, thank you. As the new incumbent in the health portfolio, I'm going to echo what Councillor Willis has just said about the complexity of the NHS. I'd already seen a little bit of it by being appointed by West Berkshire as one of the governors on both the Royal Berks and on Berkshire Healthcare, but it is a beast. And the beast is changing. Not only is the role of local government in the NHS changing with the new white paper on health, but also with the proposals that are coming forward from both the Royal Berkshire Trust, the Royal Berkshire Foundation Trust, in terms of redevelopment, and North Hampshire in terms of redevelopment. There is a need for scrutiny at a council level, and I certainly agree that the changing health landscape means that we should now form a new health scrutiny committee. So although I am going to be on the receiving end of some of this scrutiny, I fully support the concept of this scrutiny. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgman. Councillor Linden.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As the last chairman of the Health Scrutiny Subcommittee before it got abolished, I do welcome this new Health Scrutiny Committee. I think it's valuable. I think it's such a broad area, as Councillor Bridgman has stated, and Councillor Wollaston, that we really need to be focused. I do welcome the amount of member support that's been proposed. I found one of our officers, Jo Naylor, very helpful in that regard. I know she's moved on in this authority. So it is very important that we carry on this task, and I look forward to serving it under the new chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Linden. Councillor Martha Vickers.
Thank you very much. I also welcome the formation of this new committee. Again, as Councillor Bridgman said, I'm a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board. And I welcome the scrutiny. I welcome being pushed to do the valuable work that we have to do. I think we have a very hard task going forward, particularly tackling health inequalities in the area, which has been shown to be so important in the way people have responded to the pandemic and the people who've suffered most. So we have a lot of difficult tasks ahead of us, and hopefully this new committee will make sure that we put our energies into tackling the most important aspects of those, and also making sure that we're engaging with our community and that we're helping them to see the importance of public health and how they can actually contribute to the agenda and come to us with their questions. I'm always disappointed that there aren't enough questions at Health and Wellbeing Board, and I felt the Health Scrutiny Committee can possibly look at that and see how we can better engage with our public and get them to come forward and actually challenge its own council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and apologies when I spoke earlier for not adding my congratulations to your election. On the agenda tonight, we've got this obviously as item 8, the health scrutiny, and item 9, we have the health scrutiny arrangements across Bob. And later on, when we do our outside bodies, we'll be appointing people to the health and wellbeing committee as well. And I think what's pertinent is that members of the public know where to raise their concerns to the appropriate body. So whilst I absolutely support this as well, I think that over the coming months, there's an education piece that we need to do with members and with members of the public around what's the right vehicle to scrutinise the right organisation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. And finally, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm aware that this is generally a non-political meeting, and I hate to throw a spanner into the works and disturb the cosy consensus that is operating. But there's 5 members of this body. I cannot see why it couldn't have been invited, or why somebody decided there'd be 3 Conservatives and 2 Liberal Democrats. After all, we're all interested in health. We all have our ideas. We have in our group, in Councillor Masters, for example, somebody who's got a fantastic track record in the area of health, particularly mental health, through his voluntary work. I simply don't understand why the public do not think, oh, it's got to be really proportional. We must make sure there's the right number of Conservatives and Lib Dems. What they think is, what are our councillors doing in this area of health? And I cannot see why somebody couldn't have thought, why couldn't we find room for a Green? And it's not even really a party political point I'm making. It's about how the council is run, how it's seen by the public, how it shouldn't be seen as a cosy carve-up between 2 parties, but it should be looking at what all the council has to offer. And I really hope that my comments, which can be taken in this sort of spirit. I'm not having a go at anyone. I'm just regretful of the fact that we should have been so excluded, to the extent of not being involved in any of the discussions, as I understand it from my group leader. And I just think that's regrettable. And that's why I say there's a it feels as if someone's decided, well, let's carry on as we always have done. We've got the 2 parties, that's great. And let's ignore anyone else who might have something to offer. And I'm sorry to strike a dissenting note, but that's just a view we wanted to put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure Mrs. Clark would like to maybe address 1 or 2 of those issues. Mrs. Clark.
Yes, sorry. So just for clarification and for Councillor Marsh, in terms of the points that have been raised, the allocation of seats, which is in fact detailed in a later report at item 10, is actually done in accordance with a statutory framework. And so, and there is a kind of sequential test that is applied, and we have applied that in allocating the totality of seats across the council. So that's the basis upon which seats have been allocated. We are required to allocate them on a proportionate basis, but that's subject to other preceding qualifications and criteria, which are fully detailed in that report. So I'm happy to have a conversation with Councillor Marsh outside if he wishes any further detail, but the reasoning is in that report.
Thank you for that clarification, Mrs. Clark. I have one more come in. Good evening, Councillor Law.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As the seconder of this proposal, I'd just like to say, first of all, to Councillor Marsh, as this is a committee that reports into OSMC, I can assure him that OSMC is not what he calls a cosy carve-up between 2 parties. And in fact, his party is proportionally well represented on the OSMC committee. But to this particular proposal, OSMC covers a wide spectrum of issues. But I got to say, over the last 12, 16 months or so, when I've been asked to possibly look at one or two health and well-being issues, it's very, very clear that we generalists on OSNC really would have been a bit out of our depth. And it became quickly, quite apparent very quickly, that whilst we not necessarily need health specialists, we certainly need a health committee to focus specifically on the health issues. If for nothing else, to understand all the acronyms that seem to fly around when you start dealing with health. So I welcome the composition of this committee. I welcome the proposed chairman of this committee, and it gives me pleasure to second this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Law. I think we're just a little bit out of sync here, but Mrs. Clark, were there any members telephoning in with questions, please?
No, I can't see any further. No members had phoned in, and I can't see any further hands raised. So,
thank you. Well, we've heard the part of the closing order of the debate from Councillor Law. Councillor Williston, is there anything you'd like to respond on any points that have been made in the debate, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to respond to Councillor Marsh, because your Green Party does have representation on the Health and Wellbeing Board, so you're not being completely ignored from the health perspective. But I think this seems to be a very well proposed motion, which I hope everyone will support.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Clark, would you please conduct the name vote on this motion, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I will invite all members to please unmute their microphones. I'm going to conduct this by way of a named vote, which won't be recorded unless I'm asked to do that. So starting with Councillor Adrian Abbs.
For.
Councillor Steve Ardell-Walter.
For.
Councillor Peter Argyle.
For.
Councillor Phil Barnett.
For.
Councillor Jeff Beck.
For.
Councillor Dennis Bennyworth.
For.
Councillor Dominic Bowick.
For.
Councillor Graham Bridgman.
For.
Councillor Jeff Brooks.
For.
Councillor Jeff Cant.
For.
Councillor Hilary Cole.
For.
Councillor James Cole.
For.
Councillor Jeremy Cottam.
For.
Councillor Caroline Culver.
Abstain.
Councillor Lee Dillon.
For.
Someone go,
Councillor Lynn Doherty.
For.
Councillor Billy Drummond.
For.
Councillor Clive Hooker.
For.
Councillor Nasser Hunt.
For.
Councillor Gareth Hurley.
For.
Councillor Owen Jeffrey.
For.
Councillor Rick Jones.
For.
Councillor Alan Law.
For.
Councillor Tony London.
For.
Councillor Royce Longton.
For.
Councillor Ross McKinnon.
For.
Councillor Alan Macro.
For.
Councillor Tom Marino.
For.
Councillor David Marsh.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Masters.
Abstain.
Councillor Jeff Mays.
For.
Councillor Andy Moore.
For.
Councillor Graham Pask.
For.
Councillor Claire Rolls.
For.
Councillor Garth Simpson.
For.
Councillor Richard Sumner.
For.
Councillor Joe Stewart.
For.
Councillor Martha Vickers.
For.
Councillor Tony Vickers.
For.
Councillor Andy Williamson.
For.
Councillor Keith Woodhams.
For.
Councillor Howard Wollaston.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. We now move on to item 9 of our agenda, which is the health scrutiny arrangements across Buckingham, Oxfordshire and Berkshire West. I think I'm back to you, Councillor Wollaston.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'll behave myself this time and just propose the motion.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Wollaston, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Chairman. Bob, which I referred to in the previous agenda, item covers an area with a population of 1.8 million people. Again, there's a statutory scrutiny requirement The proposal being led by Buckinghamshire is to create a joint health overview and scrutiny committee of 19 people, 7 from Oxfordshire, 6 from Buckinghamshire, and 6 from Berkshire West, meaning that West Berkshire would have 2 members. Non-voting health experts can be co-opted to provide more experience, and as before, officers or members of the executive cannot represent West Berkshire. This seems to me to be a pragmatic solution, and I would therefore like to propose the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wollaston. Members who would like to talk on this, speak on this? Councillor Macro, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I greatly welcome the opportunity to scrutinise this new health body. However, I do have a concern about the terms of reference because the terms of reference just seem to be completely, that the committee, the scrutiny committee will be completely reactive. So as making comments on proposals consulted on, etc., etc. When I would have liked to have seen, you know, if the committee believes there's some kind of deficiency in the services being provided at the system-wide level, then they could raise that with Bob, as it happens. So I will support this, but I do have that very big reservation.
Thank you, Councillor Macro. Councillor Dillon.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the number of seats, it recommends within the terms of reference there will be 2 for West Berkshire Council to make up the 6 in total. And I noticed that later on in the item 10 on the appointment of allocation of seats that it recommends that both of those go to the Conservative group, but that also within our, when allocating seats to committees on councils, the sequential test says that not all seats on any committee are to be allocated to the same political group. So I just wondered, and it won't be an uncommon argument that, and you've heard it before in terms of the joint public protection partnership as well, but how do we ensure that we have opposition views on cross-unitary or cross-authority groups, and that we don't just have Conservative members, for example, you know, representing the whole of Berkshire when there are clearly Liberal, Democrat, Labour and Green councillors across the whole operating area?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mrs. Clark, would you like to come in here, please?
So I think it's the requirement that the majority of seats on any committee must always be allocated to the administration. And so where there are only 2 seats to be appointed, then they will by default go to the administration. So that's the statutory base on which it's been allocated.
Okay. Could I come back just one, Mr. Chairman? It's just in the order that they're listed in the papers for the later item, it says number 1, not all seats on any committee are to be allocated to the same political group. And then number 2, the majority of seats on any committee must be allocated to the majority group. Well, you've got 2 conflicting arguments there. So which one takes precedent? And given that number 1 is not all seats on a committee are to be allocated to the same group, to me would suggest that should take precedent over the fact that the majority should have the majority of seats on a group.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. I think we can take that further at a later time. Councillor Bridgman, thank you for your patience.
Well, Chairman, I was going to respond in part to Councillor Dillon's point. I wanted to say something about this proposed committee in any event, but if I start with the second first, and a question for Mrs. Clark, actually, whether this is a committee of council to which those rules apply, or actually a external committee to which council is appointing members, which I wonder whether the rules are subtly different for that. And of course, we are signing ourselves up to a body which has been formed externally, which has set its terms of reference. I think we've had some, I wasn't portfolio holder at the time, but I think we've had some input and conversation to those terms of reference. But at the end of the day, the terms of reference will have come about by discussion between 5 different local authorities to get to the point we're at. So I make those points, and I just invite Mrs. Clark to consider the question as to whether this is a committee of council to which those proportionality rules apply in the way that Councillor Dillon has suggested. Generally speaking, I sort of refer the members to the points I made earlier about the Health Scrutiny Committee. If we think that we've got an issue in the need to scrutinise what's going on locally, then I can assure you that scrutinising what's going on at a system level is that with knobs on. The system level here, has been said, is a fairly substantial beast. And in order to look at what is going on, firstly, we need a body like this in order to engage with. And secondly, in response to what Councillor Macro said, my recollection is that the Health and Social Care Act, which I think is where these health scrutiny functions come from, actually says that NHS and like bodies have a duty to engage with a committee like this if the committee like this exists. So in other words, you need to form the committee in order that the NHS then has a duty to engage. So I think that's the way in which this one will work. Whether or not there will be an opportunity for it to be proactive, I think it's very, very early days. I think we've got to see how it develops. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgman. Mrs. Clark, would you like to come back at this stage?
So I can do, and sorry, so I think my view is that this is referring to the totality. So where we talk about not all the seats, we have the table at table B on item 10, which looks at the totality of seats. And I do think that it's quite clear that the majority of seats on the body actually shouldn't belong to a particular group. And I think it will be similar to the Fire Authority, where you have across Berkshire different political makeups, but the allocation of seats to the Fire Authority are made in accordance with the political balance of this authority. So I have looked at that in detail previously, and I think the same applies here in similar way to the Joint Public Protection Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Bear with me, Councillor Law. I think you're coming in as a second. Councillor Masters.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo Councillor Dillon's view that there may be that in this much vaunted talk of spirit of cooperation on West Berkshire Council, that it would be the grown-up and different way of doing politics if it was to be one Conservative and one member from another party. That's just my two pence, rather than be parochial and keep it all in house. I think Councillor Dillon's point was very well made, and I agree with it.
Thank you, Councillor Masters. Before I come to Councillor Law, Mrs. Clark, do we have any members phoning in, please, before we move on to close the order of debate?
No, I can't see any other members who have phoned in, and I could see no further hands raised.
Thank you, Councillor Law.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to echo what I said on the previous proposal somewhat. Whilst we may not need specialists in this, we certainly need a special focus. And the idea of having two, whether it's two from the one party or spread, is immaterial to me. But we do have to have from council representation on these external bodies. This external bodies coming all together outside. It was all set up outside our own control, but they will have an increasingly an important influence on our lives, on the lives of our residents. So I think it does make sense to have input into that from a scrutiny point of view. I have some sympathy and empathy with Councillor Macrow's comments. The terms of reference, those are the terms of reference that were set up by a very wieldy committee. In my experience in the likes of OSMC, it's really the people who are in there. If they decide to be proactive, they'll be proactive. And I think it's up to the members of that committee, whether they're from West Berkshire or from other parts of the area, to not just sit back and take what's given at them, but to actually be proactive and demand scrutiny on certain things. So I've got confidence that will evolve over time. And I just go back to the point, this committee as well will eventually report through into OSMC. So again, OSMC, there are the parties in the council are represented there in proportionality. So left out. So I endorse this, and I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor, for your summing up on that. Councillor Wollaston, as proposer, would you like to respond to any points that have been brought up in the debate?
Thank you, Chairman. I think nothing more to add.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Clark, would you be kind enough, please, to conduct the name vote on this motion?
Thank you. So I will invite all members to please unmute their microphones again as I will go through the list of members. So starting with Councillor Adrian Abbs.
For.
Councillor Steve Ardell-Walter.
For.
Councillor Peter Argyle.
For.
Councillor Phil Barnett.
For.
Councillor Jeff Beck.
For.
Councillor Dennis Bennyworth.
For.
Councillor Dominic Berwick.
For.
Councillor Graham Bridgman.
For.
Councillor Jeff Brooks.
For.
Councillor Jeff Cant.
For.
Councillor Hilary Cole.
For.
Councillor James Cole.
For.
Councillor Jeremy Cotton.
For.
Councillor Caroline Culver.
Abstain.
Councillor Lee Dillon.
For.
Councillor Lynn Doherty.
For.
Councillor Billy Drummond.
For.
Councillor Clive Hooker.
For.
Councillor Nasser Hunt.
For.
Councillor Gareth Hurley.
For.
Councillor Owen Jeffrey.
For.
Councillor Rick Jones.
For.
Councillor Alan Law.
For.
Councillor Tony London.
For.
Councillor Royce Longton.
For.
Councillor Ross McKinnon.
For.
Councillor Anne Macro.
For.
Councillor Tom Marino.
For.
Councillor David Marsh.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Masters.
Abstain.
Councillor Jeff Mays.
For.
Councillor Andy Moore.
For.
Councillor Graham Pask.
For.
Councillor Claire Rolls.
For.
Councillor Garth Simpson.
For.
Councillor Richard Sumner.
For.
Councillor Joe Stewart.
For.
Councillor Martha Vickers.
For.
Councillor Tony Vickers.
For.
Councillor Andy Williamson.
For.
Councillor Keith Woodhams.
For.
Councillor Howard Wollaston.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. We're moving on quite nicely. We're now on item 10, which is the appointment of an allocation of seats on the committees for the 2021-22 municipal year. Members, this is on pages 69 to 82 of your agenda. Before we go forward on this, members, please be advised to refer to the update appendices A and B on this item. These were circulated early this afternoon by Stephen Shard. Councillor Doherty, please.
I'd like to propose the motion at item 10, please.
Thank you, Councillor. And do I have a second?
Happy to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Doherty, would you please introduce the report?
Apologies, I just about went off there muted, so apologies for that. Let me just, in line with the appointment of an allocation of seats report before you in item 10, I'd like to propose the appointment and allocation of seats on committees for the next municipal year, as per the recommendations laid out from 2.1 through to 2.14 of your agenda, and as our chairman's already indicated, detailed in the latest circulation of appendices. Before I do so, I would like to thank all of those for their work to date in our committees, and especially the current chairman for their contributions to date. This has been a year like no other. We've heard that said a few times, but I do appreciate that everyone has been working in very difficult circumstances. We've adapted well to virtual meetings, and we have kept the wheels of democracy turning here in West Berkshire. You will note I have made several changes. And just as we're looking at the council strategy refresh document tonight, this is because we are at the halfway point of administration. And it's mainly around enabling those who have not had the opportunity to chair a committee to do so, in the interest of both fairness and the development of some of our newer members. And you'll note some of our newer members from the 2019 intake are being appointed chairs in this report. I'd like to wish them all well with their new roles. I'd also just like to draw your attention to page 13 of the supplementary pack, where you will see a new champion role identified for Safer Streets. This follows my motion to executive back on the 25th of March to create to work alongside the Safer Communities Partnership and energise its work to focus on the current concerns of street harassment, to enable us all to work collectively towards a shared vision of what safe streets look like here in West Berkshire. I'm pleased tonight to recommend that Councillor Claire Rolls takes on this role. As our current member of the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel, I think that she will be ideally placed to lead this work. I'm therefore very happy to move the recommendations before you this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Members, I'll invite you now. Would any of you like to speak on this motion, please? No, I think we're all clear here. Mrs. Clark, Councillor Dillon, thank you.
Sorry, yeah, just in seconding, and I won't rehash it all, but we've just spoken about representation on the new health.
Are you summing up, or is this?
Yes, so just summing up.
I've just hold there. I've just asked Mrs. Clark if we've got anybody on the telephones.
No, I can't see any councillors having phoned in, and no hands are raised.
Thank you. Chairman. Back to you, Councillor Dillon. I apologise, but let's get it right.
Yep, sorry, Mr. Chairman. It was just to say that we've seconded this report tonight. This is about the business of the council and send it up for the coming year, and obviously we're going to vote in favour of the committee allocations. However, I think it should be noted that the Joint Public Protection Partnership has zero opposition on, as the new health scrutiny body, and also the terms of reference of the schools forum allows executive members to attend, and whilst shadow portfolio holders can attend, they're not even allowed to speak at that meeting. So I think there is always improvement we can make. I think I've made the comment about the JPPP at the last 4 annual meetings now, and hopefully eventually that body might take note and change its terms of reference to ensure that we have political balance across the whole of Berkshire. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Doherty, anything like to respond to?
No, I mean, just all the points that Sarah has already made around the composition is made up as per the proportionality of the committee as detailed at the start of the report. With regards to schools forum, I find that quite an interesting one because it's actually the schools that it's their forum as opposed to our forum, Councillor Dillon. So it is their forum and the way their rules apply. So we are merely applying their rules. But no, there's nothing further I wish to add. I think, I know that Councillor Dillon supports the overall report and he knows that I'm aware of his points. So more than happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Mrs. Clark, would you conduct the vote on this motion, please? And this one, I think, again, will be a show of hands.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to invite members, any members or all members in favour of the proposal to please raise their hands to indicate that now, please. Okay, and any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that recommendation has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Item 11, appointments to the outside bodies. This is pages 83 to 88 on your agenda. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for the slight delay there as I unmuted myself. I'd like to move the recommendations as laid out in 2.1 and 2.2 of the paper for you at item 11.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'd second that report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Doherty, would you introduce the motion, please?
Thank you. This report before you lays out our recommendations for the Royal Berkshire Fire Authority, Thames Valley Police and Crime Commission and the Local Government Association General Assembly. We don't intend to make any changes to those outside bodies. We therefore ask that they are approved as they stand in the agenda before you.
Thank you. Members, anybody like to contribute here? No, all very quiet. Mrs. Clark, any members phoning in or? You're on mute, Mrs. Clark. I know.
Sorry.
You're very well.
I was just confirming that no members have phoned in, and I can see no further hands raised.
Thank you for your help on that. Thank you. Councillor Dillon, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can slightly have your indulgence just for a couple of minutes, because I don't know where else I could cram this into the agenda. Councillor Bridgman's aware of the remarks I'm about to make.
And I might be as well, actually, Councillor Dillon. So do tread carefully on this one. It might appear somewhere else. Could it appear anywhere else?
Not that I'm aware of, to be honest with you. So we're happy to, as I said, second the appointment of outside bodies. My concern is how members attend those outside bodies and attend actually committee meetings and council meetings going forward. As you'll be aware, the High Court judgment on Friday ruled that virtual meetings weren't actually allowed. And so therefore we have to now meet back in chamber or in a room that's suitable for the size and number of us. I think that I'm speaking in agreement of all members that we were hoping that the High Court judgment would have gone a different way. And certainly from our side, we would have liked to have seen emergency legislation tabled by the government to enable councils to still meet, certainly in a hybrid manner for the rest of this calendar year, while we get to grips with moving back to recovery after COVID. We've also seen public participation shoot up through the hosting of online meetings. And whilst we absolutely have it in our gift to carry on streaming public meetings, I'm not sure if we can entertain public questions through that medium. So I'm not making a big P political point here at all, Mr. Chairman.
No.
I'm just, I think it was unfortunate that councils haven't been extended the courtesy of being able to decide the most appropriate way for it to be able to meet during this recovery phase of COVID. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Dillon, the delicate way you put that, and I'm sure there are many of us who would support that.
Chairman, on a point of order, and I apologise, but obviously Councillor Dillon strayed a little from seconding that, and if I might be permitted to stray a little myself from a point of order, I simply say that
I did try and ask him to be delicate.
Having been somewhat involved in this, and having watched quite a chunk of the court case that ended up with the judgment, I can say that I fully support what Councillor Dillon has just said. I am disappointed that our government did not bring forward legislation to allow us, at least until the 21st of June, to continue to hold virtual meetings. I do think many of us want to come back into the chamber. Many of us want to have physical meetings again, but only in a COVID-safe manner. So I support what's just been said. I think if not all of the members on my side of the virtual chamber would also support what's just been said. It's disappointing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgman. As I said, thank you, Councillor Dillon, for the delicate way you put it. And as I say, there is support, as you've just realised, across the chamber there. Councillor Doherty, anything you'd like to respond to?
Sorry, Chairman, I just should point out that Councillor Tony Vickers has raised his hand.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just be, sorry, Clark, can I be clear on a point of order here? I understood it that we were closing the debate and that Councillor Dillon has closed the debate and therefore it reverts to me to finish on this point, or am I lost?
No, you are right. And in fact, I think it should have been Councillor Dillon there was just adding his one contribution, and then it's for you to conclude the debate, Councillor Doherty.
Okay.
Can I get confirmation?
Thank you both,
Mrs. Clark.
We had entered into the closing of debate, Councillor Bridgman raised a point of order. It should technically go to Councillor Doherty. I was simply pointing out that Councillor Vickers had raised his hand. It has now been lowered.
Thank you very much. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. I'm just conscious because I don't think you'll get any disagreement that we don't all now start to raise our hands to talk about it. So I'm not going to echo anything that Councillor Bridgman or Dillon has said, other than say that there's a complete agreement, I think. But no, I would like to now, I have nothing further to add to the outside bodies report, and I'd like to move that motion, please.
Thank you very much. And just a note there to Councillor Vickers, we did have the opportunity where we invited others to speak. We just missed the window, I'm afraid. Mrs. Clark, can you conduct the vote, please, on how the members wish to vote on this this motion? I think, again, we're on a show of hands, are we?
Yes, we are indeed. So
Thank
if
you.
I could ask all members, please, to raise their hands to indicate their support for this proposal. Thank you. And any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you. Move on to item 12, Monitoring Officer's Annual Report to the Governance and Ethics Committee. This is the year 2020-21 year end, pages 89 to 100 on your agenda. I think this is with you, Councillor Williston, to propose a recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose the motion.
Thank you. And do I have a second, please?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Williston, would you please introduce the report?
I'm going to be very brief, Chairman. This is the annual Monitoring Officer's report to the Governance and Ethics Committee, which is approved by them. It is also brought to full council as required by the Constitution. It shows no significant issues, with standards of ethical behaviour remaining good, and the declaration of gifts and hospitality is significantly down. So I therefore propose this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Williston. And members, anybody like to make a contribution to this? No, I don't see any hands up. Any members phoning in? Mrs. Clark.
No, Chairman, there are no members phoning in, and I can see no raised hands.
Thank you. Then I invite the seconder, Councillor Stewart. Would you like to add to the debate at this stage?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and I will be similarly brief. I want to say thank you to the monitoring officer, actually, for producing this report, and to the members of the Governance and Ethics Committee who have kept us on a straight path during what has been a really strange and often difficult year. And I have to say I concur with the conclusion that despite the significant rise in the number of complaints over the past year, it is considered that members in West Berkshire continue to maintain high standards of ethical conduct. And I'm happy to second this report, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Williston, anything you'd like to add in winding up, please?
Nothing further to add, apart from to add my thanks to Sarah Clark as well.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Clark, would you please conduct the vote?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask members to raise their hands again in order to indicate support for this proposal. So if all members could raise their hands. And any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that has been carried.
Thank you very much. Members, I'd like to ask you all to note the information on the agenda relating to each of the committees listed in the agenda in items 13 to 18. Please take items 13 and 18 on block, and please merely note that they have or they have not met. So we then move on to item 19, which is the Council Strategy Refresh 2021, pages 101 on your agenda. Our leader, Councillor Doherty.
I would like to propose the motion as identified at item 19.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, you do, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Water. Councillor Doherty, please introduce our
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. This evening, I'm pleased to be able to present the proposed Council Strategy Refresh to you all. This strategy is the Council's overarching strategic document that sets out our priorities for improvement and reaffirms our commitment to continue the delivery of our core services that the people in West Berkshire need and value. I would recommend approval of this refreshed strategy, as the first 2 years of the strategy have delivered some really positive outcomes for the people of West Berkshire. For example, the strong performance of our children and family services, as acknowledged in Ofsted's recent annual report of the service. Our continued high performance in getting children into a school of their choice, of course, helped by the building of 2 new primary schools and our continued capital investment into education. The quality of our road network, placing us in the top quartile nationally of all local authorities. The opening of the Hermitage Hampstead Norreys footway and cycleway. More can be found on page 10 of your strategy. In fact, I could stand here for the rest of my speaking time and list the achievements delivered in the first 2 years of this administration, but I don't want to embarrass those who didn't vote for it back in 2019. Even when our KPIs indicate that we are making good progress, it is still prudent to review any strategy at the halfway point to ensure that the priorities and commitments remain relevant and to ensure we are on track to deliver all we set out to do. However, in addition to this, we need to factor in the impact of COVID on our communities. And therefore, this refreshed strategy has also been informed by our recovery and renewal strategy. I am pleased to say, in general, there is little in way of change of actual direction. We need to continue to focus on our core business, such as protecting our children, economic development and waste collection, and on the 6 areas for improvement, which are identified as still valid and needs our support going forward. Where we need more focus, such as more work on the delivery of our environment strategy, support for education, and our economic recovery following the impact of COVID. I'm sure you have all read the strategy itself and will agree that this continues to drive us forward as an ambitious council that wants to maintain West Berkshire as a great place to live, work and learn for its residents. I commend the recommendation of adopting the refreshed strategy before you.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got a couple of hands up already. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman, and may I welcome you to the chair, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll get along swimmingly.
I can feel it in my bones, Councillor Brooks.
You bet.
Hope it's in your bones too, sir.
Well, it's in my water. I don't know about my bones, but there you go. Now, I'm not going to be stung by the comment by Councillor Doherty that this wasn't supported 2 years ago, because it ain't going to be supported by this group tonight. Because as usual, it's low on objectives and goals. And let me just, for a moment, it'll only take me 30 seconds, just give you what a strategy means if you look it up. It generally involves setting goals and priorities, determining actions to achieve the goals, and mobilising resources to execute the actions. And yet again, this is short on goals, short on objectives, and long on text and narrative that, frankly, nobody would read every darn boring word of it, frankly. If you're going to put something out to the public, make it better for them to understand what you want to achieve and what you have achieved. For instance, rather than me just belly aching on, let me just say on 5.3, page 27, what has happened since 2019? The council declared a climate emergency. Okay. Boris Johnson set out his ambitious 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. What's he got to do with the council's strategy? And you know, what has happened since 2019? Where are the examples? You have talked, to be fair to you, you have talked on the same page about improvements made by extending the cycleways. You should be much more clear about where they are, how many miles, how many kilometres, and yet again, it's all very holistic motherhood and apple pie. For heaven's sake, I thought you were improving when I saw a strategy at the executive, but you're still happy to go along with these very broad, bland, high-level helicopter strategies that frankly don't tell people much at all. Where is your meaningful targets, your KPIs? I keep saying it and I will keep saying it until one day I hope you'll surprise me and I'll be pleased to vote for something that, because you see, this is not just about what you want to do, it's giving a clear steer to the officers. We want you to achieve this.
Here they are, 20 things, clear, they can be measured, they can be seen to have been achieved, they can be photographed, we can see that you have achieved our objectives. But honestly, this doesn't cut it, and you're not surprised I'm saying it, and now you're going to line up and tell me I'm wrong, but I'm not. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Bowick.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, members, as lead member for Children, Young People and Education, I'm pleased that Council is being asked to support the continued prioritisation of protection and achievement as set out in this refreshed strategy. And I'm sure you're all equally pleased in that ambition. The strategy updates us on some of what we have achieved in protecting our children and supporting education. And our leader has already mentioned a couple of the points that I had planned to make, so I won't reiterate them, but they were important points. The pandemic has imposed enormous pressures on us all and has proved extraordinarily challenging to the people who work in these services and on our partners who work with us. And this strategy sets out the approach that we will take to ensure our vulnerable children achieve better outcomes and to support everyone to reach their full potential. It provides the direction for us to follow in our recovery from the pandemic. And in the detailed plans that the strategy will drive, which will, of course, set goals and will be a plan against which we can measure outcomes. I'll be looking for even greater emphasis on prevention and early intervention. We have already seen real benefits from initiatives such as the family safeguarding model, from engaging with young people as early as possible and through supporting learning journeys. And looking wider at my own particular area of responsibility, I see a refresh of an already ambitious strategy that supports and empowers Council to build on the way that our communities came together and responded to the challenges of COVID-19. I'm certain that the adoption of this strategy is the start of new beginnings that will enhance and improve the lives of our residents. I urge members to join me in supporting the strategy brought forward by Councillor Lynn Doherty.
Thank you, Councillor Bowick. Councillor Adrian Epps.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I must also add my congratulations to your new role, and thanks again for your time as Chairman of WAP, which I enjoyed very much indeed. Yeah, a new strategy, a refresh strategy sounds like a good idea to me. You shouldn't really, once every 4 years is certainly not enough. Every couple of years doesn't sound too bad. However, 4.3 of this strategy, there's a sentence there. The two most significant changes, okay, COVID, yes, I agree with you, a significant challenge. However, the second one, I think I have to challenge. To state that declaring a climate emergency is somehow a natural evolution is close to an insult to those members of the public and councillors from the opposition mainly that have worked hard to get the climate emergency declared. It's only as a result of the pressure that one was declared. However, it is good to see that the administration has started to embrace that need, although again, disappointing, they will still need to keep pushing for substantive action to be taken. As a member of the council, I am happy to push for that action, as are the rest of my colleagues in the Lib Dems. The real issue, as it appears to me, is that after 2 years, there is very little actual physical evidence of any natural evolution. Rather, the Conservative administration has started from scratch to establish a strategy, hired extra staff, and now has a draft delivery plan. However, I repeat, that is nearly 2 years since the emergency was declared, which does not really align with the word emergency. I would prefer the words to be altered to reflect the cross-party push for climate action rather than what seems an attempt to take credit for something that did not appear by the evidence available to come naturally to the Conservatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbs. I'm looking now, Councillor McKinnon.
Thanks, Chairman. Just to briefly respond to Councillor Abbs's accusation of inaction, I would just remind all members that last year we raised £1 million in the UK's first ever community municipal investment, raising money directly for environmental projects, and that money has been already deployed in the district on solar panels and other environmental initiatives. So I think a picture of inaction would be slightly inaccurate there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're about there. Before I ask Councillor Ardagh Walter to start the closure of this debate, Mrs. Clark, do we have any intervention?
No, there are no members who have phoned in and no other members with their hands raised at this point.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ardagh Walter, second that. You'd obviously like to contribute to the debate.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And once again, I'd like to congratulate you on your new role. I'd also like to thank, in starting, Councillor Brooks for his extremely helpful mock attack on the lack of detail and a shopping list and actions in this strategy. A strategy, in my reading of the word, is that it should be something high level, overarching, and with a longer time frame than a typical list of actions. This strategy, and particularly I'll talk to the environment portfolio, though again, as Councillor Doherty has mentioned, we of course straddling 6 priorities of the council. This strategy has to run and has an extremely ambitious goal, and in that I do agree with Councillor Abbs. It has an extremely ambitious goal of hitting carbon neutrality, not only for this council, but for the entire district of nearly 160,000 people in less than 10 years, by 2030. That is extraordinarily challenging. It will take not only the actions of this council and of this government, hence the linkage with our Prime Minister Boris Johnson, but also, and perhaps most crucially, the overwhelming majority of all our residents to act over the coming years towards this goal. To have a strategy which listed a long list of things which we in 2021 know need to be done, and that is it, and so on and so forth, would firstly be bound to failure, and secondly be horribly inflexible. And that is why, as you're aware, Councillor Brooks, we have the delivery plan, which will be a rolling and regularly refreshed detailed list of actions, and you're very welcome to look at an incredible amount of detail which has already been assembled there. And most importantly, particularly in the world of the environment where there are so many unknowns and changes and so forth, we have to rely on that level of detail for actually doing things. Again, as Councillor McKinnon has pointed out, we have started and made quick actions where that is possible and appropriate so to do. All big things, the solar plans that we have at Graiseley is one big example. Big things take a long time to plan. They cannot be whistled up in 6 months, much as we'd love them to be. They are complex, and if they were easy, they would have been done long ago. As to Councillor Abbs's point that we're simply jumping on the back of pressure from outside parties and really we've done very little, I'd strongly dispute that point, Councillor Abbs. The previous administration to this was the one which installed solar electric vehicle charging points, and we will build on that. And we will build on, for example, the conversion of streetlights to low energy usage and many other things. To say that we've suddenly converted to the cause is really totally untrue. So again, I commend this overall direction to the council. It is absolutely right that we acknowledge we have many things to do. We have lots of challenges ahead, but still we have shown that we have done a lot in the 2 years to date. And I look forward to us continuing that rate of progress and accelerating in many areas in the years to come. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Abbs, you've got your hand up. Unfortunately, we're on the closure of the debate now.
Point of order, please, Chairman. That's all I was looking to raise.
Sorry?
Point of order is all I was looking to raise.
Okay.
It's simply that Councillor Ardagh Walter challenged me to debate, but of course did it in a way that doesn't allow debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Doherty, anything you'd like to respond to on the points that have been raised during the debate?
Only that it's rather sad and disappointing that there's actually no surprises in what was in the debate from Councillor Brooks. He might find words darn boring, I think, whereas boring words, I don't. I fundamentally disagree with his interpretation of the strategy, and I think Councillor Arderwater is very correct in that. If he hasn't got used to by now the fact that a strategy will guide the direction of travel, the delivery plans will follow that through with the actions, and the KPIs will monitor it, then I can only apologise, but that's what the rest of us are working towards. And as far as being light on anything, you're right. I could spend all evening talking about our outstanding yacht. I could spend all evening talking about how our homeless reduction strategy for rough sleepers has had an impact. That I was at Housing Board last week that tells me we've got one rough sleeper currently within West Berkshire. I could talk about our praise for our shared life services.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I could spend all evening. I could spend all evening doing this if it wasn't for interruptions. Is he coming? Okay, doing this. However, as I've said before, we need a strategy. The strategy is heading in the right direction. It's delivering what we set out to deliver and we promised our residents we would deliver. Sat behind this is many other individual strategies with delivery plans. You just need to look at each of our key priority areas to see things like our apprenticeship strategy, our adult autism strategy, our SEND strategy, our economic development strategy. So I'm very happy. Excuse me, point of order here. I've got interruptions by Councillor Masters. I'll do him the respect of listening to him when I've had the opportunity to finish speaking, please.
Thank you. Councillor Masters, you're not muted. We can hear your conversation in the room there. Do continue, Councillor Doherty. I'll call on...
our culture and heritage strategy. Our culture and heritage strategy, our housing strategy, all of which are delivering for the residents of West Berkshire. And the refresh merely says that we're heading in the right direction. Everything that we're intending to do is still on track. There are areas we need to refocus on, particularly because of COVID. And I would highlight our recovery and renewal strategy, which comes through on the 10th of June to executive, with areas such as the local economy, children's education and the health and well-being of our residents. And also highlight to you around the communication engagement strategy and our green renewal, which come through on those pieces as areas that we would like to give some additional focus and priority to. But all in all, the strategy before you this evening, I think, is a fair representation. I would recommend that we adopt it tonight to take us forward for the next 2 years of this Conservative administration.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Councillor Masters, I will now take your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Councillor Doherty said, she could spend all night, and she did spend all night doing a party political broadcast. This isn't, about this, the broader achievements of the council, not the policies of the Conservative Party, which, until the insightful and forward-looking people of West Berkshire, and I think they're the ones that we should be thanking for any moves towards.
Excuse me, is there an actual point of order here, Chairman? Is there an actual point of order here?
The point of order is that it was, in fact, a party political broadcast, which is inappropriate for this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Masters. Councillor McKinnon.
No, that's fine, Chairman.
I thought you got a point of order. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Masters, for your point of order. I think it's a situation now where we can take a vote on this. Mrs. Clark, would you please conduct the name vote on this motion, please?
Thank you. If I can invite all members, please, to unmute themselves and to indicate for, against or abstain when their name is called. So starting with Councillor Adrian Abbs.
Oh, the thing I would like you to have changed for.
Is that for?
Just.
Good.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Ardar-Walter.
For.
Councillor Peter Argyle.
For.
Councillor Phil Barnett.
Just for.
Councillor Jeff Beck.
For.
Councillor Dennis Bennyworth.
For.
Councillor Dominic Bowick.
For.
Councillor Graham Bridgman.
For.
Councillor Jeff Brooks.
Abstain.
Councillor Jeff Cant.
For.
Councillor Hilary Cole.
For.
Councillor James Cole.
For.
Councillor Jeremy Cottam.
Abstain.
Councillor Caroline Culver.
Abstain.
Councillor Lee Dillon.
Abstain.
Councillor Lynn Doherty.
For.
Councillor Billy Drummond.
Abstain.
Councillor Clive Hooker.
For.
Councillor Nasser Hunt.
Abstain.
Councillor Gareth Hurley.
For.
Councillor Owen Jeffrey.
Abstain.
Councillor Rick Jones.
For.
Councillor Alan Law.
For.
Councillor Tony London.
For.
Councillor Royce Longton.
Abstain.
Councillor Ross McKinnon.
For.
Councillor Alan Macro.
Abstain.
Councillor Tom Marino.
For.
Councillor David Marsh.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Masters.
Abstain.
Councillor Jeff Mays.
Abstain.
Councillor Andy Moore.
Abstain.
Councillor Graham Pask.
For. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Rolls. For. Councillor Garth Simpson.
For.
Councillor Richard Sumner.
For.
Councillor Joe Stewart.
For.
Councillor Martha Vickers.
Abstain.
Councillor Tony Vickers.
Abstain.
Councillor Andy Williamson.
For.
Councillor Keith Woodhams.
Abstain.
Councillor Howard Wollaston.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Members, we move on to item 20, which is Police Directorate restructuring cost. This is on page 147 to 152 on our agenda. And members, may I respectfully remind you all not to discuss or refer to any part of the part 2 paper during this part 1 debate. Councillor Hilary Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, I too would like to add my congratulations to you on your appointment as chairman. You've been an excellent chairman of Western Area Planning Committee and a really valued support to me as my deputy in my previous portfolio. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Cole.
Thank you. I propose the recommendation as set out on item 20 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Do I have a seconder for this motion, please?
You do, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sumner.
And I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Cole, Councillor Hilary Cole, would you please introduce the recommendation, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This paper is in 2 parts, and this is the introduction to the part 1 paper. Like the chairman, I want to remind members that the part 2 paper is confidential and will be discussed following the exclusion of the press and public. The council undertook a senior management review in 2019, which proposed the establishment of the Place Directorate, including the creation of an executive director place and 2 service director posts to reflect the 2 new services: environment and development and regulation. The service director environment post was recruited to in April 2020, but the recruitment process for the service director development and regulation was paused pending the appointment of the new executive director place, which was accomplished in December 2020. 2 posts will be deleted from the organisational structure on completion of the recruitment process for the service director development and regulation. This report sets out the potential redundancies which may occur by the 31st of August 2021 as a result of the recruitment into this post. It seeks approval from council to make the redundancy and, if appropriate, retirement payments as associated with the possible staffing changes. The estimated total financial payments, which can be found on page 150 of the part 1 agenda, are detailed in the part 2 report. If these are approved, the cost will come from the council's restructuring reserve, but will be overall cost neutral as a consequence of deleting 2 posts. I commend the report to council and move the adoption of the recommendation as set out in 2.1 on page 147 of the agenda. That council authorises the redundancy payments detailed within this report and included in the Part 2 paper. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Members, open it up for debate. Anybody like to speak on this? No, we are all clear. Thank you. Mrs. Clark, have we? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. We fully understand reorganisations need to happen. We've been kept appraised of this one by the CEO. I'd like to know how quickly it's cost neutral, because it's a large upfront payment. So perhaps Councillor Cole will come back on that. I can imagine any redundancy package will eventually be cost neutral, because we are deleting a post here. And I'd like to know a little bit more about what budget it would come from. But we do understand what the executive and leadership are looking to achieve here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Mrs. Clark, again, no calls?
No, Chairman, there's nobody on the phone and no further hands are raised.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sumner, as seconder, your opportunity.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'll say the report has been covered very well by Councillor Cole, as one would expect. This is a necessary restructure, and it will enable the council to continue to develop and transition, and at the same time provide suitable allowance in the event is what is appropriately labelled the worst case scenario. In fact, in the event that officers are redeployed, then the uppermost value will not be reached, and that needs to be clearly stated to all members. It is important to note the continued progression of this transformation, especially as we as an authority, and in fact the country, continue to move forward post-COVID and into a changing face of service provision. I'm very happy to second this proposal, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sumner. Councillor Cole, anything you wish to come back on?
Yes, just to respond to Councillor Brooks. Cost neutrality is covered in the Part 2 report, Councillor Brooks. There is a table there for you to see. And I did mention in my introduction that the costs will be met through the council's restructuring reserve.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, the voting on this matter will take place following the Part 2 debate. We'll now move on to item 21. This is the exclusion of the press and the public. And I'd like to make the recommendation that members of the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item, as it is likely that there would be a disclosure of exempt information of the description contained in the paragraphs of Schedule 21A of the Local Government Act 1972, specified in brackets in the heading of each item. So I would like to propose the exclusion of the press and public for Part 2. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll happily second.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Mrs. Clark, would you please conduct the vote? How members wish to vote on this, please?
Yes, thank you. Can I ask all members in favour of this recommendation to exclude the press and public to please raise their hands now? Any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you. Just a note then to the members of the press and public that are watching this now, I just need to inform you that the remainder of the council meeting will be held in Part 2 due to the confidential nature of the information in that discussion. Thank you. I need to ensure here that Mr. Rumans, could you put a note up, please, saying that this is now in Part 2?
Thank you, members. I will now begin by calling each commission and committee in turn. Only committee members to be in attendance at each of these meetings. I would please ask that all non-committee members please turn off their videos and microphones. For each meeting, I will request the submission of nominations for the election of chairman. The chairman of the commission or committee will then conduct the remaining business on each agenda. So the first meeting is that of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Commission. The members of this commission are Councillors Jeff Brooks, Councillor James Cole, Councillor Lee Dillon, Councillor Gareth Hurley, Councillor Alan Law, Councillor Tom Marino, Councillor Steve Masters, Councillor Claire Rolls and Councillor Tony Vickers. Thank you. Can I please request nominations for the position of Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Management Commission?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Alan Law as Chairman.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to second that, please.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? No, thank you. So unless the proposer or seconder would like to say anything, I'm happy to move to a vote. Okay, so can I please ask members to raise their hands if they are in favour of the proposed chairman? Thank you. I can confirm that Councillor Alan Law has been elected as chairman, and I shall hand over to Councillor Law.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, members. Thank you for voting me chairman next year. First item on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies? I don't think we do, Sarah, do we?
No, I've not received any apologies.
Okay. And the next item is the nomination for vice chairman. Is there anyone? Councillor Brooks?
I'm going to propose Councillor Lee Dillon, Chairman.
I would like to second that if that's possible. Okay. Can Sarah, are you taking the vote?
Yeah. I think we're technically meant to.
Oh, I need to ask.
If there are any further nominations.
You're quite correct. Are there any further nominations for vice chairman? No, I don't see any. So Sarah, would you take the vote, please?
So can I please ask members? Yeah, can I please ask members to indicate their support for that proposal by raising their hand? And that's carried. Thank you, Chairman. That proposal has been carried.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you. And thank you, Lee. Welcome, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I don't think there's any other business. Any other business? No, no business. So I declare the meeting closed. Back to you, Mrs. Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I will now call to
Sarah,
order.
before you move on, I'm sorry to come in from the floor. Councillor Jeffrey, you need to turn your video off. You weren't a member of OSMC, but you had your video on.
I think the host.
Owen, where you go to mute it, there we go.
He's done it.
He's done it.
Thank you. So I'm now going to call to order the Health Scrutiny Committee, and the members of this are Councillors Jeff Beck, Tony Linden, Alan Macro, Andy Moore and Claire Rolls. Okay. Sorry, I'm just, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to see who I have. I think it's Jeff, Councillor Beck. Oh, sorry, Councillor Beck, I can see you. Can I please request nominations for Chairman of the Health Scrutiny Committee?
I'd like to propose Councillor Claire Rolls as Chairman of the Health Scrutiny Committee. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Linden. Does that find a seconder?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Macro. Are there any further nominations? No. So can I please ask members who are in favour of this proposal to now raise their hands? And that has been carried unanimously. So I declare that Councillor Rolls has been elected Chairman of the Health Scrutiny Committee, and I shall hand over to Councillor Rolls.
Thank you very much. And can I just say thank you very much indeed for voting me in as your chairman to this new committee, which I'm proud to chair. It's my first chairmanship. So exciting. So I will start by saying, are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies received. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask if there's any request for nominations as vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Alan Macro as vice chairman, please.
Are there any further nominations? And do we have a seconder? That's me, yes. Can that?
Found it on the crib sheet.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to second that.
Thank you. So can I please now ask members to indicate by raising their hands whether they're in favour of the proposal to nominate Councillor Alan Macro to the position of Vice Chairman. And again, that has been carried unanimously. So I confirm that Councillor Macro has been elected Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other business? In which case I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you. I shall now call to order the Licensing Committee. So the members of the Licensing Committee are Councillors Adrian Abbs, Peter Argyle, Phil Barnett, Jeff Beck, Graham Bridgman, Billy Drummond, Rick Jones, Tony Linden, David Marsh, Graham Pask, Claire Rolls and Martha Vickers. Can those members please turn their cameras on? Thank you. Thank you. Can I please have nominations for the chairman of the Licensing Committee?
Indeed, you may, Mrs. Clark. I'm delighted to propose that Councillor Rick Jones is elected chairman of the Licensing Committee for the 21-22 municipal year.
Thank you. And does that find a seconder?
Mrs. Clark, and I formally propose that Rick Clark second the motion as chairman of this committee.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? No, I can see no hands raised. So can I please ask members to raise their hands to indicate support for the proposal that Councillor Rick Jones be elected Chairman of Licensing? Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Then I can confirm that Councillor Rick Jones has been elected as Chairman, and I shall hand over to Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you very much, members, for your vote of confidence. Can I start by asking if there are any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received no apologies for the meeting.
Great. In that case, we move to the next item, which is to propose a Vice Chairman for the committee. Are there any nominations for Vice Chairman?
I'll propose Councillor Barnett, as I can see Councillor Abbs on the call. So I've
right here, actually, Martha, but go on.
Oh, he is there. Sorry. Go on. Are you proposing him?
Yeah, obviously, I'd like to propose Phil Barnett.
Thank you both. He's now double proposed.
Yeah, indeed.
But I would like to say that nomination. Are there any other nominations? I see none. So, Mrs. Clark.
Okay, can I please ask members to raise their hands in support of the proposal that Councillor Phil Barnett be elected Vice Chairman? Thank you. Any against? I can confirm that that has been carried.
Thank you very much, members.
Thank you for that nomination. Apologies, I think there's been problems regarding my microphone. And I'm hoping that you can actually hear me and speak properly this time. Sorry about that.
Your sound has gone funny, Phil. Your sound's gone funny.
Sound like a Dalek.
It's still like a Dalek. Oh dear.
Now you're better.
It's all right.
That's better, yes.
Cheers.
I thought it was an impression of Darth Vader, but
sorry about that, Chairman.
No problem.
Licensing committee is intoxicated.
Do we have any other business, members? I see no hands, in which case I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chairman. I shall now call to order the District Planning Committee. The members of District Planning Committee are Councillors Phil Barnett, Dennis Bennyworth, Hilary Cole, Caroline Culver, Alan Law, Royce Longton, Ross McKinnon, Alan Macrow, Graham Pask, Richard Sumner and Tony Vickers. Thank you, members. Can I please ask for nominations for the position of Chairman of the District Planning Committee?
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Alan Law.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Councillor Cole, are there any further nominations? See no further nominations. So I'm now going to ask members to indicate their support for the proposal that Councillor Alan Law be elected Chairman of District Planning Committee. Can I please ask members to raise their hands now? Thank you. And any against? Thank you. I can confirm that Councillor Law has been elected Chairman of the District Planning Committee. And I shall hand over to Councillor Law.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And again, members, thank you for voting me in. Thank you for your confidence. First item is, do we have any apologies? I don't think we do.
No apologies received, Chairman.
Apologies. Therefore, we go on to the nomination of the Vice Chairman. And I'd like to propose Councillor Dennis Bennyworth. Does that have a seconder?
Yes, I second that nomination, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cole. Any other nominations? I don't see any. So, Sarah, if you could take us through the vote for the Vice Chairman, please.
Yes, thank you. So can I please see or ask all members to raise their hands in favour of the proposal that Councillor Dennis Bennyworth, apologies, be elected Vice Chairman of District Planning Committee? Thank you. And any against? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that has been carried and Councillor Bennyworth.
I've been called worse, so don't worry.
I was about to say, welcome, Benny.
Apologies.
I don't well, we've done apologies, haven't we? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was saying apologies again.
Yes, indeed. We have we any other business? I don't think so. That being said, I'll call the meeting to a close. Back to you, Mrs.
Thank you, Chairman. And I shall now call to order the Eastern Area Planning Committee. The members of Eastern Area Planning Committee are Councillors Alan Law, Tony London, Royce Longton, Ross McKinnon, Alan Macrow, Jeff Mays, Graham Pask, Richard Sumner and Keith Woodhams. Thank you, members. I'm just travelling across two screens. Can I please request nominations for Chairman of Eastern Area Planning Committee?
Yes, Mrs. Clark, I'd like to propose Councillor Graham Pask.
Thank you. And does that find a seconder?
So I would like to second Graham Pask.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? I see no hands. So with that, can I please ask all members now of Eastern Area Planning Committee to raise their hands in favour of the proposal that Councillor Graham Pask be elected as Chairman? Thank you. And any opposed to that? No. I can confirm that Councillor Pask has been elected as Chairman of Eastern Area Planning, and I shall at that point hand over to Councillor Pask.
Right, thank you very much. It's good to be back. Thank you for putting me back at where I started before. Are there any apologies, Mrs. Clark?
No, we've not been notified of any apologies.
Okay, in that case, I request nominations for Vice Chairman.
Chairman, I nominate Alan Macrow.
I will second Councillor Macrow, Councillor Williams. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Mrs. Clark, would you take us through the vote, please?
Thank you. Can I please ask now all members to raise their hands in favour of the recommendation that Councillor Macro be elected as Vice Chairman? Thank you. And any opposed to that? I can confirm, Chairman, that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. And the only other business I would conclude the meeting by saying is the meeting scheduled for the 12th of May has been postponed or cancelled, I should say, due to the uncertainties for the way in which we operate meetings and fortunately a lack of business. So I look forward to seeing you in about 4 weeks' time. And with that, I close the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. I would now call to order the Western Area Planning Committee. The members of this committee are Councillors Adrian Abbs, Phil Barnett, Dennis Bennyworth, Jeff Cant, Hilary Cole, Caroline Culver, Clive Hooker, Tony Vickers and Howard Wollaston. Thank you, members. Can I please request nominations for the Chairman of Western Area Planning Committee?
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. I would like to propose that Councillor Dennis Bennyworth be elected Chairman of the Western Area Planning Committee for the 2021-22 municipal year.
Thank you. And does that find a seconder?
I'm very happy to second Councillor Bennyworth as the Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? No. So I will ask all members please to raise their hands in favour of the proposal that Councillor Bennyworth be elected as Chairman of Western Area Planning Committee. And any against? I can confirm that Councillor Bennyworth is elected as Chairman of Western Area Planning Committee.
Sarah, and thank you, members. Thank you also, Clive. I'd just like to say that you'll be a very tough act to follow, and if I can live up to your high standards, I'd be very happy indeed. First item is apologies. Sarah, do we have any apologies?
No, we've not been advised of any apologies.
Thank you very much. Looking then for nominations for Vice Chairman. Do we have any?
Chairman, I'd like to formally nominate Councillor Tony Vickers for the position of Vice Chairman of Western Area Planning.
Thank you to Councillor Barnett. I'd like to second that nomination.
Thank you. Are there any further proposals?
No further proposals. If Mrs. Clark, if we can go to the vote.
Thank you. So can I ask all members please to raise their hands in favour of the proposal that Councillor Tony Vickers be elected Vice Chairman of Western Area Planning Committee? Any against that proposal? Chairman, I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Members, is there any further business? If not, and it sounds as though there isn't, I shall declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chairman. I shall now call to order the Governance and Ethics Committee. The members of this committee are Councillors Jeff Beck, Jeremy Cottam, Rick Jones, Tony Linden, Tom Marino, David Marsh, Jeff Mays, Andy Moore and Claire Rolls. Thank you, members. Can I please request nominations for Chairman of Governance and Ethics Committee?
I'd like to propose Councillor Beck.
Thank you. And is that seconded? Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please, that Councillor Tom Marino be nominated as Chairman or elected?
I'm happy to
Yeah, I'm happy to second if there's anybody else.
Yeah. I think Councillor Beck indicated, but thank you, Councillor Rolls. Thank you. So are there any further nominations? No, so I shall now move to the vote. Can I please ask members to raise their hands to indicate whether they are in favour of the proposal that Councillor Marino become elected as Chairman of Governance and Ethics Committee? Thank you. And any against that proposal? So I can confirm that Councillor Tom Marino has been elected as Chairman of the Governance and Ethics Committee, and I shall hand over there to the Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, members, for voting me in as your Chairman, I think. It's my first committee chairmanship. Can't wait to get started. So first order of business, are there any apologies for absence, Sarah?
No, we've not received any apologies, Chairman.
Great, thank you. Therefore, we'll move on to the nomination of a Vice Chairman. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Jeremy Cottam as Vice Chairman.
I'd like to second that as well. Are there any further nominations? I don't think so, in which case, Sarah, can we move to the vote, please?
Yeah, can I please ask all members in favour of the proposal that Councillor Jeremy Cottam be elected Vice Chairman to please raise their hands now in favour? And any against? So I can confirm that that proposal has been carried.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Finally, members, is there any other business?
I'd like to congratulate you, Chairman, on your new chairmanship.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. I appreciate it.
And I'd like to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor Linden. I think if that's it, I'll call the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chairman. So I shall now call to order the Personnel Committee. The members of this committee are Councillors Adrian Abbs, Peter Argyle, Jeff Brooks, Garth Simpson and Howard Wollaston. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
So can I please have nominations for the Chairman of the Personnel Committee? Councillor Simpson, you're on mute, sorry.
Could I propose Councillor Argyle in that case, please?
Thank you. Does that find a seconder?
Happy to second. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That has been seconded. Are there any further nominations? No. So can I please therefore ask members to indicate whether they wish to vote in favour of the proposal that Councillor Peter Argyle be elected Chairman of Personnel Committee? Sorry, and is there any against that? No, so I can confirm that Councillor Peter Argyle has been elected as Chairman, and I shall hand over to Councillor Argyle.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, members, for having faith in me on this one. Now, nominations for Vice Chairman, please.
I think, Chairman, we're technically meant to do apologies before we
sorry,
move on,
sorry.
although we haven't
apologies?
received. Yeah, I can confirm we've received no apologies.
Thank you. So can I have...
Yeah, Chairman, I'd like to propose Councillor Brooks, please.
I will second that if nobody else will.
Councillor Simpson, I think Councillor Simpson was raising.
Ah.
I second that proposal.
Okay. Were there any further nominations for Vice Chairman? No. So would you like me to move to the vote, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So can I please ask members now to raise their hands to indicate support for the proposal that Councillor Jeff Brooks be elected as Vice Chairman of Personnel Committee? And that is unanimous. So I can confirm that that proposal has been carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there any other business?
Not from my perspective, Chairman.
Thank you. In that case, I close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And with that, that concludes the business of West Berkshire Council this evening. And I would invite the host to cease the live streaming.